I stood in the courtroom with my knees shaking so badly I thought I might collapse. The judge slid a thick file across the table toward me and said, "You signed this, Danielle." The paper clipped on top had bold letters across the header, "Voluntary surrender of parental rights." My signature was there at the bottom, sloppy and barely legible. But I had never seen that form in my entire life. I turned slowly to look at my brother Tyler, sitting 2 rows behind me in his perfectly pressed gray suit. He nodded. Not at me. At the judge. Like this was all part of some plan they'd agreed on without me. My body went completely cold. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "It's over." And just like that, my daughter, my only child, was handed over to my brother. Forever. Legally his. No longer mine. I couldn't breathe properly. The courtroom started spinning around me. I was choking on the realization that Tyler had been planning this for months, maybe years. All those times he'd helped me. Driving me to therapy appointments. Filling my prescriptions at the pharmacy. Controlling every aspect of my recovery. It wasn't kindness. It was grooming. He'd made me feel safe so I'd let go of my power without realizing what was happening. He'd made me feel broken and incapable so I'd let him lead every decision. And when I finally fell apart completely, he was right there to catch my daughter and claim her as his own. That was the moment I understood the terrible truth. Tyler didn't save me from anything. He owned me. Every piece of me. And now he owned her too. My name is Danielle Hart. I'm 34 years old. 5 years ago, I trusted my older brother with my life because I thought I had no other choice. I just lost everything that mattered. My marriage had ended in violence and chaos. My mental health had shattered under the weight of abuse I'd endured for years. I thought the worst thing that could happen to me was losing custody of my daughter because of a breakdown I couldn't control. I was wrong. The worst thing was letting Tyler help me. The worst thing was believing he had my best interests at heart when really he was building a cage around my life so slowly and carefully that I never noticed the bars until it was too late to escape. This is the story of how my brother destroyed me while pretending to save me. My daughter was removed from my care after a severe mental health episode triggered by years of domestic abuse. I'd tried to leave my ex-husband multiple times, but he'd worn me down psychologically until I barely recognized myself. When I finally broke down completely in front of a social worker, she made the decision to place my daughter in temporary custody. Tyler showed up at the hospital calm and confident. He told the social worker, "She just needs rest. Some time to recover. I'll handle everything." He sounded so reasonable, so capable. The social worker looked relieved to have a family solution. Tyler took me home that day. He took my daughter too. And I was so grateful. So desperately grateful that someone was stepping in to help when I couldn't function anymore. I should have been terrified instead. Growing up, Tyler had always been the hero of our family. I was the sensitive one, the emotional one who felt everything too deeply. Tyler was steady, responsible, the child our parents could depend on. When our father died suddenly when I was 19, Tyler was made executor of the entire estate. He was only 25 but everyone trusted him completely. No one questioned his decisions about money or property. Not even our mother. Especially not me. I'd learned early that Tyler knew best, that he made good choices while I made mistakes. That pattern had been established long before I needed his help. So when he offered to save me from the worst moment of my life, I didn't hesitate. I didn't question. I just said yes and handed him everything. Tyler offered to take my daughter temporarily while I got back on my feet. "Just until you're stable," he said gently. "She needs consistency right now, and you need time to heal." He even signed a handwritten note saying the arrangement was temporary. I kept that note in my wallet like a promise. It said, "Emma will return to Danielle's care when she's completed treatment and been cleared by a doctor." His signature was at the bottom. I thought that note meant something. I thought it was protection. Tyler moved Emma into his house and set me up in the small guest house behind his property. It was clean but isolated. I wasn't allowed in the main house unless Tyler specifically invited me. The rules started small and reasonable: no alcohol. No unsupervised time with Emma until I was further along in recovery. No phone calls after 9 at night because Emma needed consistent bedtime routines. Tyler began undermining my sense of reality so gradually I didn't notice at first. He'd forget to give me my medication, then act concerned when my symptoms got worse. He'd reword conversations we'd had, making me doubt my own memory. "That's not what I said, Danielle. You're confused again." He started recording me on his phone whenever I got upset or emotional. Then he'd show those recordings to our mother, carefully edited to make me look unstable and irrational. Our mother started saying I was too sick to parent, that maybe Emma was better off with Tyler permanently. "Just until you're really better," she'd say. But the goalposts kept moving. I was never quite stable enough, never quite recovered enough. Tyler controlled the narrative so completely that even I started believing I was more broken than I actually was. Tyler offered to handle all the court paperwork, so you don't mess this up again. I was exhausted and overwhelmed. The legal system terrified me. So I agreed gratefully. He said all I needed to do was trust him and sign where he highlighted in yellow. Over several weeks, I signed 14 different documents without reading them carefully. Tyler stood over me while I signed, talking about other things to distract me. "Just formalities," he'd say. "Trust me, I've been through this with other clients." Tyler was a paralegal, so I believed he knew what he was doing. I believed he was protecting me. I signed everything he put in front of me. That was my biggest mistake. Those documents would later be used to strip away every right I had. I was denied visitation with Emma after 3 months. The court order came in the mail addressed to me, but Tyler intercepted it first. When I finally saw it and confronted him, he acted shocked and concerned. "There must have been a mistake in the filing," he said. "I'll fix it right away. Don't worry." But he never fixed it. Weeks passed with no change. Meanwhile, Tyler was telling the court I'd voluntarily stepped away from parenting, that I'd admitted I wasn't capable of caring for Emma. He submitted statements I'd supposedly made. Statements I had no memory of making. My words were being twisted and used against me. And because Tyler was handling everything, I had no direct contact with lawyers or judges. I was completely isolated from the legal process that was taking away my child. I discovered Tyler had obtained medical and financial power of attorney over me. I found the documents by accident while looking for my insurance card in his office. My signature was on them, but I had no memory of signing anything that gave him that level of control. When I confronted him, he didn't get defensive. He just looked at me with practiced concern. "You were suicidal last year, Danielle. Don't you remember? You begged me to take over because you didn't trust yourself with important decisions." His voice was so calm and certain. And the terrible thing was, I'd been suicidal. There'd been dark weeks after losing Emma where I hadn't wanted to live anymore. Had I asked him to do this? I genuinely couldn't remember. That uncertainty became a weapon he used repeatedly. Any time I questioned him, he'd remind me of things I supposedly said or did during my worst moments. One evening I overheard Emma on video chat with Tyler's girlfriend. My daughter's voice came through the door clearly. "Good night, Mommy. I love you." She was talking to Tyler's girlfriend, a woman named Simone who I'd met exactly twice. When I confronted Tyler about it, he acted surprised. "It's just easier for her at school," he explained. "All the other kids have a mommy and daddy." She was getting confused and upset. This way she fits in better. Later I heard Emma call Tyler Daddy, too. He'd become her father. Simone had become her mother. And I'd become the unstable woman in the guest house who Emma visited occasionally under supervision. My role in her life had been completely erased and replaced. And it had happened so smoothly that even Emma seemed to accept it as normal. Tyler systematically cut off my access to friends and the outside world. He blocked numbers on my phone without telling me, claiming they were triggering for my recovery. He changed my phone plan to one where he could monitor all my calls and texts. He installed security cameras around the guest house for safety, but I knew he was watching me constantly. I started feeling paranoid and trapped. So I began secretly writing letters to myself, documenting everything that happened each day. I hid them in a box under loose floorboards in the bathroom. Those letters were my only proof that I wasn't losing my mind completely. That things were actually happening the way I remembered them. That Tyler's version of reality wasn't the only version. Writing became my lifeline to sanity when everything else felt like it was slipping away. Emma's 6th birthday arrived. I'd been planning for weeks, buying supplies to bake her favorite cake. The same chocolate cake with raspberry filling I'd made for every birthday since she turned 3. I showed up at Tyler's house with the cake and presents. Tyler met me at the door and blocked me from entering. "You're not welcome today," he said flatly. "Emma's having a party with her real family. If you try to come in, I'll call the police and report you for trespassing." I stood there holding the cake, completely stunned. Through the window, I could see Emma in a princess dress surrounded by other children. Simone was helping her blow out candles on a store-bought cake. That night I sat alone in the guest house eating the chocolate raspberry cake by myself. It tasted like grief and loss. I cried until I couldn't breathe properly. Tyler came to me a few months later with what he called a new plan. He said he wanted to help me heal by giving me a sense of purpose again. He introduced the idea carefully, like he'd rehearsed it. "What if we gave Emma a sibling?" he suggested. "Someone she could grow up with. Someone you'd never lose custody of this time." He talked about IVF, about using my eggs with a donor. He said I had good genes, and that creating new life might help me recover emotionally. I was numb by then, so worn down by isolation and grief that I couldn't think clearly anymore. The idea of having another child, one I could keep this time, felt like a second chance. Tyler made all the arrangements. He found the clinic, filled out the paperwork, drove me to every appointment. I was inseminated 3 times before it worked. The whole process felt surreal and disconnected, like it was happening to someone else. I gave birth to a boy 9 months later. The delivery was quiet and medicinal. Tyler was in the room but Simone wasn't. Our mother came but left quickly afterward. "We'll raise him together," Tyler promised. "You, me, and Emma. A real family." But that's not what happened. Tyler named my son without my consent. He chose the name Harrison after our father. I wanted to call him something else, something that was mine, but Tyler registered the birth certificate before I could object. Harrison lived in the main house with Tyler and Emma. I was allowed to visit and help with care, but only under supervision. I wasn't trusted to be alone with my own baby. The rules from before applied again: supervised visits only, no major decisions without Tyler's approval. I'd given birth but I wasn't really the mother. I was more like a live-in nanny who happened to share DNA with the child. The second pregnancy was different. Worse. I woke up one morning confused and disoriented, my body feeling wrong. Tyler was sitting on the edge of my bed in the guest house. "You don't remember last night?" he asked carefully. "You were drunk. You threw yourself at me. I tried to stop you but..." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. But I hadn't been drinking. I was completely sober the night before. I remembered going to bed early with nothing but water. Something was wrong but I couldn't articulate what. Tyler made me feel like I was losing time, like there were gaps in my memory I couldn't account for. 9 months later I gave birth to another boy. Tyler named him Carter. This time he listed himself as father on the birth certificate. I wasn't mentioned anywhere on the official documents. My name was completely missing. I'd carried and birthed a child who legally didn't belong to me at all. I found the evidence by accident. Tyler had left his office door unlocked one afternoon while he was at work. I went in looking for my medical records, trying to piece together what had happened to me. Instead, I found a hidden folder on his computer labeled Guardianship, DH. Inside were court transcripts I'd never seen. Photos of me during my worst moments, carefully curated to make me look incapable. Audio logs of conversations that had been edited to remove context. Proof that Tyler had forged documents. Altered medical files to make me seem more unstable than I actually was. Staged episodes where he deliberately triggered my anxiety then recorded my panic attacks. He'd manufactured my instability systematically. Every breakdown I'd had wasn't just natural illness. It was orchestrated. Tyler had been poisoning my recovery while pretending to support it. The realization made me physically sick. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. I kept searching through Tyler's files while my hands shook. I found Carter's birth certificate buried in a folder of legal documents. Tyler was listed as both father and legal guardian. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. According to this official document, I didn't exist in my own son's life. There was no record of me giving birth to him at all. I took photos of everything with a phone I'd bought secretly and hidden in the guest house. I didn't have much time. Tyler would be home soon. But I needed this evidence. It was the first real proof I'd found that I wasn't crazy, that my memories were accurate, that Tyler had been systematically stealing my life and my children. I printed copies of the most damning documents, hid them in my letterbox under the floorboards, and carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Tyler never knew I'd been there. I tried to escape 2 weeks later. I packed a bag in the middle of the night and started walking toward the main road. I didn't have a car or much money, but I had my hidden evidence and a desperate need to get away. But I'd made a mistake. I'd left my journal on the guest house table, the one where I'd been documenting everything for months. Tyler found it before I made it a mile down the road. He drove up beside me and got out of the car slowly. "Get in, Danielle," he said calmly. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I was terrified of what he'd do if I refused. So I got in. He drove me back in silence. Once we were in the guest house, he held up my journal. "You're lucky I'm still protecting you," he said quietly. "Without me, you're nothing. No one would believe you. No one would help you. You'd end up homeless or institutionalized. Is that what you want?" I found a therapist outside Tyler's insurance network. Someone he couldn't monitor or control. I paid cash using money I'd been saving secretly from small odd jobs. Her name was Dar Pierce and she worked out of a small office across town. I lied to Tyler about where I was going, said I had started volunteering at a library. Dr. Pierce listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she didn't look skeptical or doubtful. She believed me. "You need to document everything," she said. "Every interaction, every conversation. Dates, times, witnesses if possible. Build a case so thorough that no one can dismiss it." She gave me practical advice about hidden cameras, about digital evidence storage, about finding legal help. For the first time in years, someone was treating me like a competent adult instead of a broken child. That validation changed something fundamental in me. I started fighting back. I told Tyler I was pregnant again. I wasn't, but the lie bought me time and freedom. Tyler was thrilled, talking about giving Emma and the boys another sibling. While he celebrated and made plans, I worked secretly on my real plan. I installed tiny hidden cameras in the guest house and common areas. I transferred files from Tyler's computer to encrypted cloud storage he couldn't access. I reached out through Dr. Pierce to lawyers who specialized in family court fraud. I built my case carefully, piece by piece, document by document. Tyler thought I'd finally accepted my role in his controlled little family. He thought I'd given up fighting. That made him careless. He stopped monitoring me as closely. He left doors unlocked and files accessible. He got comfortable. And comfortable people make mistakes. An old friend from high school contacted me through social media. Her name was Keisha and she'd become a family law attorney. She'd seen a vague post I'd made weeks earlier about feeling trapped. Something about my words had concerned her enough to reach out. We met secretly at a coffee shop far from Tyler's neighborhood. I told her everything and showed her my evidence. The forged documents. The altered records. The proof of coercive control spanning 5 years. Keisha's expression grew darker as she reviewed it all. "This is criminal," she said finally. "Not just family court stuff. Your brother could face serious charges." She agreed to help me pro bono. We spent months building an airtight case. Every signature Tyler had forged. Every document he'd manipulated. Every lie he'd told to courts and doctors. We built a timeline so detailed and comprehensive that no judge could ignore it. The court date arrived 6 months later. I'd petitioned for custody reversal and filed charges of guardianship fraud against Tyler. He showed up confident and calm, thinking this was just another hearing he'd manipulate in his favor. His lawyer was expensive and well-dressed. They'd prepared a defense painting me as an unstable woman making desperate accusations. But when Keisha rolled in a card of evidence and began playing audio recordings, Tyler's confidence started cracking. The judge's face changed as he listened to Tyler's voice on tape discussing how to make me more compliant and easier to control. When Keisha presented the forged documents side by side with originals, Tyler went pale. The hearing lasted 6 hours. By the end, the judge was angry. Visibly, obviously angry. Tyler had manipulated his courtroom, lied under oath, and committed multiple felonies. Justice was finally happening. Tyler lost everything in the following months. He lost custody of all 3 children. His reputation was destroyed when the local news picked up the story. His paralegal license was revoked permanently. The Bar Association opened an investigation into every case he'd ever worked on. He was charged with fraud, coercion, forgery, and assault. The evidence of what he'd done to create Carter, my second son, led to additional criminal charges I couldn't even think about without feeling sick. Tyler begged me for mercy through lawyers and family members. He claimed he'd only been trying to help, that he'd made mistakes but his intentions were good. I didn't respond to any of it. I was done listening to his justifications and excuses. He'd stolen 5 years of my life and tried to steal my children permanently. There was no mercy left in me for him. Only justice. Cold, absolute justice. I got full custody of all 3 children. Emma, Harrison, and Carter were legally mine again. I changed their last names back to Hart, my maiden name. I moved us across the country to a small town where nobody knew our story. I went back to school and got my degree in social work. I started working with trauma survivors, helping other women escape situations like the one I'd barely survived. Emma, now 9 years old, slowly started calling me mom again without fear or confusion. The boys knew me as their mother from the beginning of their real lives with me. I published a memoir 2 years later telling the whole truth. The final chapter revealed everything about Carter's conception. The DNA test results were printed in black and white in the court documents, proof of what Tyler had done. I never spoke his name again after the book was published. But I ended with this: my brother thought I was broken. But he built a smarter, stronger version of me. And now I build futures, not for men like him, but for women like me who survived and refused to stay silent.